That's all. I guess religious skeptic, well, it's very fitting because I think religion is ridiculous in general. I'm just not entirely convinced it's what I'm looking for. Additionally,
I know the dilemma you're going through. I did a video called Philosophizing Symbology, wherein I mull that same thing over. Skeptic has negative connotations. Infidel has negative connotations. Every word that you would come up with to describe yourself does. And I think the best thing that we can do is clarify what these definitions really mean, and then try to wrest what the actual definitions are away from the people that have been trying to misdefine them our entire lives.
Mm-hmm. I think you should start calling yourself an anti-positivist.
Who knows, maybe that will work.
Eric, thank you very much for the call. I'm going to move on, but thank you. I hope you enjoyed the rest of the show. And we're going to go straight on to the next caller. Just give me 1 second. Apologise for this. I've got to obviously add people every time we move from call to call. But I can tell everyone in the room that the caller following this is going to be Shelley Summers, who I've not spoken to for a long time, so I'm looking forward to that. But in the meantime, we have John. If I can find him, there we go. John, if I can just remind you, if you could please mute Blog TV and also mute the microphone when you're not actually speaking, that would be great. Thank you very much. And after that, we've got another couple of callers. And I imagine that we're going to have enough room for a couple more. So if you want to join the show, send me a message on Magic Sandwich through Skype. Okay, welcome to the show, John.
Hey, thanks. I hope you've actually got sound from me. This is the laptop setup.
We can hear you very well indeed. Thank you very much.
Great.
What did you want to raise?
I got interested in the whole faith versus atheism thing, basically through watching a lot of your videos, and having kind of I was always raised as an atheist, and kind of took the idea that evolution was true and correct pretty much for granted, until I found out that there were these people out there called creationists, strange bad people, and I started looking into this more and more, and over the last 6 months I've learned a huge amount from all of your videos, which has been very interesting. But in looking at the phenomenon of faith as a whole, you see it crop up over and over again in human societies all over the world and throughout history, but only in human societies. And I wondered about the idea that faith itself could be genetic, and what your take on that could be.
Well, can I just, before we go to concordance and Aaron, can I just say that this week Nathan Freed posted a video in which he seemed to be suggesting that just that he was relying on an article which he said was news, although it was published over 2 years ago in the Daily Telegraph, which basically said that research had shown that people do have are born with a propensity to believe in religion. He seemed to be arguing that this was evidence, in fact, for there being a God, although he never actually managed to explain why that would be. He also missed out the one paragraph from the news from the report in the newspaper, which read, "This is why people are more likely to believe in creationism rather than evolution, even though they're taught otherwise." So I've always thought that there is some sort of propensity to believe in a religion, and that is where you see religions cropping up in almost all civilizations wherever they appear in the world. Aaron?
Well, I don't know about everywhere in the world. I don't know about the practices that Eastern religions have always gone through, but I know it's a little hard to go against the family tradition. It's a little hard to go against what an entire colony or community has adopted as their belief, and certainly when you get into the Abrahamic faith, where it becomes a life or death situation. If you don't believe, they're going to kill you, and you can see how skepticism will be easily and rather quickly weeded out of the gene pool, to where when these are the people that have populated the western half of the planet at the very least, then it's obvious why there is a propensity to believe. It's been going on for 3,000 years or so that they've been killing anybody that says, no, I don't believe that.
Well, that's I kind of took that into account, and I was looking at more the kind of the general faith in general rather than specific religions. And it seems to be it's an exclusive, as far as I know at least, an exclusively human trait. You see chimpanzees going to war and forming hierarchical communities. You don't see them worshipping the unknown. That's something you only see humans do. If in nature, if an animal sees something that it doesn't understand, it either fights or runs away. Humans have this thing where they go, well, we either fight or we run away, or we create a god and worship it, bow down before it.
Can I add a little something here?
Yeah.
I think I'm sort of embarrassed to admit, I haven't read much of Dennett, but I understand there's a great deal of discussion of agency detection. I think that's a very relevant topic for what you're talking about, and that is, if you can imagine yourself as an antelope watching a distant lion and trying to decide whether or not he looks particularly hungry, that is an evolutionarily selected trait, the ability to project into other people or other animals some of what you think they're thinking. And since that's so hardwired into our ability to think, that we begin to see agency in everything. So you talk about your car as though it were a woman, right? Or boats as though they were women. We talk about emotions and things that don't actually have emotions. So if you begin then to personify and give human character, agency, to inanimate objects or to the wind in the sky, then you can certainly see how that would lead to a belief in an anthropomorphized being that has the same properties as the chieftain, right? Or the chieftain of the chieftain. And I think that's where a lot of it comes from. Genetically, I think we're primarily programmed to be agency detectors. And any animal that wasn't a good agency detector got eaten by the lion.
That's a good analogy. And when you're talking about, as he put it, you make the river a male counterpart to the sea, where the river cleaves into the sea, and then the river becomes Apsu, the male lover of Tiamat. And then, as I mentioned in a recent video, where you have wisdom is portrayed in the Bible's book of Proverbs as though she were a goddess, given a gender and all. So very quickly you end up with Mother Nature, and then you start adding, well, what would Mother Nature wear? And then you come up with a further personification of that, and until people believe that there actually is such a person.
I've always thought it was interesting that certain Eastern religions come up with, and certain also, like the Egyptian, some of the ancient beliefs in like the Babylon region, they have very fanciful gods that were very non-human. And yet, as you go further and further, God becomes more and more of a sort of a father or a chieftain or some wise old man with lots of power. You get away from the one that has the head of a dog or the 16 arms and the serpent's tongue. And why do you think that is? What particularly, especially about India, occurs to me? We have an elephant-headed God.
Well, that was an accident. Ganesha, a god had killed Ganesha as an accident, and then tried to make it up to his parents by putting a head back on, and I don't remember why they couldn't get the right head, so he just happened to have an elephant's head lying around and stuck that on instead.
That makes a lot more sense.
I also like the fact that the Hindu religion has Hanuman, and Hanuman isn't an anthropomorphized animal. He is an animal. He is a monkey, right? And Hanuman led a monkey army to the support of Vishnu in the formation of this bridge that runs from India to Sri Lanka. It's quite a remarkable little bit of story, especially when you have people in the local area who are claiming, just as the creationists in America talk about their flood geology and the evidence for the flood, these people point to this bridge and claimed that it was made, I believe it was supposed to have been made by the monkey army of Hanuman under the leadership of Lord Vishnu.
That's the only reasonable explanation I can think of.
Oh yes, all the signs point to it.
Yeah, but I think that the stories that you've just referred to, and also the stories you get in Greek mythology, really do make the Bible look incredibly boring. I mean, all you get in the Bible are lots of killings and slaughterings and sacrifices and the occasional little miracle, but it's, compared to Greek mythology, it doesn't match up, does it?
Well, yeah, Greek mythology pales compared to Hinduism. Hinduism is just freaking huge. I mean, I don't know enough about it. I've been to the Krishna temple several times. I've read the books of Sri Prabhupada, and I was very fond of a lot of the Hindu mystique throughout a lot of my teen years, but I could never learn enough about it because there's so much. I mean, you can read the Bible, and it doesn't take that much time before you reach theologian status. It really doesn't. I mean, there's not the investment. If you wanted to be an actual scholar on Hinduism, you've got the Mahabharata to start with, and all the Vedic scriptures, and it's voluminous. In the last video that I did, where I was talking about Michael Dembski and William Dembski, and I mentioned his comparison to, or my comparison to Krishna to Jesus, and I mentioned what could Jesus do that Krishna had already done or had not already done, and somebody else was commenting rather heavily on that the stories about Krishna were huge compared to the paltry tale of Jesus. Jesus is almost a limerick by comparison to the Lord of the Rings trilogy that was the story of Krishna.
I don't know if any of you guys have read the Julian Jaynes novel, the Origin of Consciousness and the Breakdown of the Bicameral Mind. I read it probably 20 years ago, but I remember at the time it was terribly perceptive about. You're all familiar with the sort of voice in your head that seems to be talking to you, right? Like the voices are always telling me to kill someone, but it's something along those lines where you're getting a voice in your head that's telling you the sort of the overmind, and that people would personify that and try to turn it into something external, right? Something in the beyond that we couldn't see but we could hear.
Well, okay, what you're tapping on there, you could, even rational people experience this from time to time when they're like buying a lottery ticket, for example. I mean, when you're trying to pick out the numbers on a lottery ticket, as if it makes any difference which number you pick or what significance it might be. And there are people that will buy a lottery ticket. It makes a
significant difference if you actually manage to pick the right ones.
Yeah, but based on what? There is exactly the same odds as getting the numbers 1 through 6 in succession as there is in any other order. Okay, and so when you choose numbers that have a specific meaning to you, does that mean that they're going to come up? Or when people buy 2 lottery tickets, they're going to buy one for the Saturdays you're drawing, and you're going to buy one for next week's drawing too, and then they question themselves, well, if I buy one for next week, that means that I don't really believe hard enough that I'm going to win. And if believing hard enough means that you'll, there are people that think like this. I mean, if they believe hard enough,
can we go back to John?
Change reality.
John?
Yeah.
Did you want to come back on anything?
Not really. It wasn't so much a question as your just kind of your thoughts on whether faith might be on why faith was an exclusively human thing.
I mean, there's another way to approach this. I think that one of the reasons that human beings have arrived at the position that they have, with an apparent advantage in some regards over other animals, is because they seem to have developed a level of curiosity that is greater than many other animals. And I suspect that there is probably a combination between that curiosity and a desire for answers that has led on occasions to the wrong answers being found, but at least it satisfies your curiosity.